Can't hear you.
Mike was not on.
I'm gonna start sending you a text message before everyone. Like, I'm gonna say like turn your audio on.
Stupid. Well,
you're killing me.
The lights are all green, so there's no indicator that something's different. Like everything's off. It looks the same as if it's on. I don't know. That's what you get for mid-grade audio equipment.
Oh no. Have you seen that new the Chappelle, like not stand up, but his acceptance speech for naming the Duke Ellington Theater after him?
I have not.
Dude, it's 40 minutes of your life. You'll love it. It's just one of those things where it's like, that guy is so good. He'll make you laugh and cry multiple times in a span of 30 minutes. It's unbelievable. So good.
He is a sharp cat. You told me something last time to watch. Might have been a superhero movie or something. I can't remember now. Also, James Bond. We didn't think about. We're not talking about that. We didn't think about that guy.
We're not discussing that. We're not discussing the person they're going to cast as the next Bond either. We're not discussing that.
I just wasn't even on my radar. It should have been on my radar. That was an option.
No, it's not an option anymore. Those films are no longer applicable to me.
Well, he's dead, so
you killed him. You killed off James Bond. So you can't have a new James Bond.
Unless it's the 18-year-old James Bond. I guess you go that direction.
Right, you go back that far.
You go back.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. That could be some good content there.
Well, that's kind of like, did you ever see Young Indiana Jones? Like Sean Patrick Flannery? So like one of the Boondock Saints guys? They did like 5 movies. Like Spielberg produced like these like young Indiana Jones movies.
Okay, then no, I have not.
Oh.
Nope, add it to the list.
Yeah, have you watched The Terminal List?
Part of it.
Okay, how far have you gotten in The Terminal List?
I haven't picked it up for a while. I'm not sure.
Okay, so you haven't got to like episode 3?
I probably have.
Did you get to the point where he uses his hatchet?
It doesn't sound familiar. So
okay, I'm not gonna give it away.
Okay.
That movie gets that series gets rough. Ian, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can, man. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, man. Can you
Awesome.
turn your screen to the side?
I can.
Oh, excellent. Oh. There's even more of you now. Now I can see your shoulders.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Man, I just woke up maybe 45 minutes ago, and I just finished a big contract out here in South Dakota. So I got like a month off going forward, and and like today I'm like really happy I pulled the trigger on it, but I'm about to head east later this afternoon and do 2 days of training with a soft sniper. So I'm like I'm like pretty hyped right now.
Yeah, and you're gonna learn.
Well, I've this being out here, being out here in Rapid City, I've had access to a lot of really good land to do my own thing on. So I've pushed my own training and self-education pretty hard, and this is going to be kind of like a thing to fill in the gaps with and potentially refine some of the fundamentals that I may or may not have gotten not quite as right as I wanted to, or maybe as quite as right as I could on my own, with books and things. So in person, with anything is going to be better than, learning through books and videos and that type of stuff. So this is kind of like a little finale or cap off, if you will, of the last couple of months on my own. Cause I don't know, I probably won't be able to do any work with my long gun for the next month or so until I'm at my next concrete location. So I'll be flying back to Florida next week. I'll travel with my handgun, but I won't worry about bringing any of my long guns with me.
Yeah, that's a nightmare on the airline to get those checked in, checked out. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah. I'm curious how it'll go, because this will be my first time bringing my. Normally I don't bother because my trips are so short, but I also this day and age, current events plus being back for like 3 or 4 months, and I'm going to be going all around the state for the next couple of weeks, just catching up with people. So I'll want to have that gun with me. And this handgun I bought probably 2 months ago. I'm fucking in love with it, man. So I'm kind of attached to it.
And what is it?
It's a Staccato C2.
Oh,
yeah,
that's great. That's great.
Yeah. And I put a Trijicon RMR on it, and it has a Surefire light, and I have a CGS Mod 9 SK on the way that's actually sitting in Tampa. So I'm going to go look at it and put it on and see how it feels and stuff. So it's like probably, you know, close to right around a $4,000 setup. And this thing is the most phenomenal handgun I ever shot. Not too long ago, I was shooting targets at 100 yards with it. So
really, what was the grouping like at that range?
You know, it's hard to tell because I was shooting steel.
Okay.
I was shooting steel, and this steel I've blown off. What I should have done, and I kick myself in the foot for it every time, is whenever I go, I always forget to bring a can of spray paint to re-spray paint the steel target so I can actually see.
Yeah.
So I blasted the paint off this thing. I think it was all right. Like, I think it was maybe, I mean, my steel target, put it this way, my steel target's like a C-zone target, like a B to C-zone target. It's 16 inches tall by 10 inches wide. So it's a torso. So if I'm hitting with 9 mil at, you know, 90 to 100 yards consistently, fairly predictably, then, like, you know, I'm kind of pushing the limit of that round anyways. So, you know, I'm pretty happy with that. You know, if I can roll around with the 9 mil and be confident at 50 yards, then, like, that's well above and beyond, you know, what I need as far as that goes, to be able to, because, like, if you roll with you know, if you carry like a PDW style 9 mil, like with a stock and, you know, a 30 round mag and stuff, like, you're like, that's the same distance you might reach out to with that. So if I can get that out of a handgun with a 4-inch barrel, like, I'm pretty confident and pretty happy.
Yeah. When did all this like this pastime of like long rifle and just targeting, when did all this come around? Because when I originally met you, not that we were talking about, you know,
this type of
weapons
thing,
at the time, but, you know, like, when did this come around, man?
Well, I've always had my foot in, if you will. I grew up hunting and fishing, and, you know, being out in the woods, and, like, I made my own ghillie suit when I was like 12 years old to go out and play paintball and sneak up on motherfuckers. And it wasn't the best suit. You know, I was 12 though. Like, I went to Army surplus, bought a flight suit, sewed volleyball net on it. And the mistake I made was putting the volleyball net 360 degrees, like, all around it. I should have just put the burlap on the shoulders and back and upper body, but I put it like circumferentially. So I just looked like,
just so you could be a tree.
It literally, like, it worked it worked pretty well. Like, I still snuck up on some people, but man, in Florida, in the Florida heat,
I'll burn you out.
Yeah, it was like, it was pretty rough, man. I couldn't do it for too long, like maybe a few matches, and then it was like, all right, I'm just gonna run and gun. But no, man, I was reading Carlos Hathcock books when other kids were reading Harry Potter.
Okay.
And then you know, and then when I was a teenager, I was probably gonna go in, and then my granddad's a 2-star general, and he wanted me to go to West Point. But my parents made the mistake when I was 16. They like, my parents divorced, my dad started drinking a bunch, shit got kind of tumultuous at home, and I was an angry teenager, as we all kind of were. And my parents got the bright idea to ship me off, surprisingly, no warning, no nothing, at 6 a.m. with an escort service to electively to a correctional facility in Western Florida, in the Panhandle, that was basically ran by dishonorably discharged military guys and radical Pentecostals.
In the beautiful section of Florida, the eastern,
in the backwoods.
Yeah.
And I was there for 13 months, and I was completely cut off from the world, news, friends, to everyone at school. I just disappeared one day. I just didn't show up to class one day. And I was there for 13 months, and, like, there was some pretty bizarre, like, fucked up stuff that happened there. Like, I'm pretty sure one kid died from rhabdo. Looking back on it now, like, I mean, I was I wouldn't say interrogated. I got questioned by DCF when they came to do the investigation. And the people who were running, some of the staff, some of the men that were running the place were sitting on the other side of a thin door listening to me answer the questions how they told me to answer them.
Yeah.
And you know, I was 16, 17. So when I came back from that, you know, and how I got out was pretty messed up too. They tried to starve me for a week, and I lost like 8 pounds in a week because they tried to feed me like 800 calories a day, because I was the cook there was this nice old lady, and I was working in the kitchen some, and we had a little weight room there, and so I was like, really, that was kind of my outlet and like my little place to escape. And I was working in the kitchen some, and she was sneaking me extra food because I was fucking hungry all the time.
Yeah.
And they found that out, and decided to put me on like quarter rations for a week, which was like 600 calories. And yeah, I ended up, it was, long story short, I had a situation where I went off site for an annual checkup that I would do when I was around that age, because I had eye surgery when I was a kid. And when I went off site, it was my mom that picked me up, and it was really bizarre. I don't know why they just were okay with her doing that, like in retrospect, but they took me back into Tallahassee, where I was from, which was like 5 hours away. And like, they must have not computed, like put 2 and 2 together, but it was like, all right, you're feeding me quarter rations. You're letting me go back 5 hours away with just my mom, with no escort or anything. Like, you think I'm realistically going to fucking come back? Like,
yeah.
On my own, you know,
Yeah.
with my own
free will,
of my own accord. Yeah. Because whenever I got home, she had to like go run an errand and left me at home by myself. And this was the first time I was like shell shocked. This is the first time I had been home in like a little over a year. And I called her, and I basically told her, like, hey, if you don't pull me out of this, like, I'm gonna dip and do my best fucking job at trying to get the hell away from here, and you'll probably never see or hear from me again, kind of thing.
How old are you?
I was like 16 or 17.
Okay.
I think I was 17. Yeah, because I entered when I was 16. So this was probably like right after like January of 08, maybe, a while ago. Yeah. And before I had left, I basically told all the guys I knew that were in there with me, like, hey, I'm not coming back. So like, here's my good deodorant. Here's my good personal hygiene stuff. Like, here's my good socks. Like, I gave all my shit away. And one of my buddies there gave me some contact information of people that were further in South Florida that would, you know, put me up if they knew I was friends with them. So I had a little piece of paper with contact info, like in my sock. But yeah, and she, but I told my mom, and a lot of the stuff that was going on that she obviously didn't know about, because they paint a pretty picture on the outside, that place, the staff. So she pulled me out, and within 3 days I was back walking the halls of high school, like, just completely like, I needed a debrief was what I need. Like, I needed, you know, I needed some, like, a week or two to let it settle. It was just a blur, but like, I handled it, and obviously moved on. But anyways, man, that was it. I don't know if you're recording or not. That was an interesting way.
Oh, I sure am. We record everything.
That was a better, to know the origin story. I didn't think it was going to be like half Bane and half Prison Break.
Right. Well,
because obviously that ties into, you know, there being a strong, I mean, I identify with some of that, of having this push to have a strong sense of, I need to be physically strong to protect myself, because if you're in environments where like you legitimately have you know, physical threats, not to mention like weird instincts kick in when you're, you know, malnourished and things like that are happening. So you go into those modes, it's like you know, it's a longer term fight or flight, but you start to kick in with these animal instincts. So the necessity for physicality is not like it's not a hobby, it's not a pastime, it's not something that, like, even if you didn't really enjoy it, you wouldn't be doing it. But there has to be a huge portion of that being like not just like a thing, but like now hardwired into who you are as a human being.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And now that I know more about psychology and I'm getting, I'm an older, slightly wiser individual looking back at some of the things that I didn't know and I didn't understand then, and like I coach athletes now as part of my income and through my online business. And working with people and kind of seeing how people function, I can identify a lot of these things and a lot of these driving factors in people. And it's like, man, at a developmental point, mentally, physiologically, I was basically conditioned to not trust people, not trust authority figures, to be very, very, I don't know if I would use the word controlling, but to be very, very focused on like protecting what is mine. Like even after shit, man, like a specific example, even after that, like even now it's really difficult for me to share food with people. Like I'm getting better about it consciously because I'm like, I can kind of consciously tell myself, dude, there's more food, it'll be fine. And so I'll be like more willing to share food with you. But man, for a decade after that, if you it was difficult for me to go to restaurants that are based around like sharing restaurants,
Sure.
Like the tapas restaurants and things like that, where instead of ordering your own concise meal, they bring out like a plate of food and everyone kind of takes a little bit off of it. Like I would start to get a little bit like I would get a rise out of that, I would have dreams afterwards. Like usually they started out probably around like maybe once or twice a week, and then over the years they dropped to like maybe once a month. And maybe like now I don't really have them anymore. Now I might have them like once every 6 months. So I'll just dream that I'm like back in there, like stuck in there, like looking out the window wanting to get out or something, with some other weird variables thrown in. But I mean, it was bizarre, man. It was bizarre. The first month I was there, I lived in an orange jumpsuit and slept on a concrete floor and got woke up nearly every hour to be physically exercised. And if you didn't comply, you got to sit outside in a 30 by 30 foot sand pit in the Florida heat with a little bit of sunscreen, a hat, and a cup of water. And you got 3 peanut butter sandwiches 2 or 3 times a day. Or no, you got 2 peanut butter sandwiches 3 times a day. You're out there from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the heat, no shade. And, kids would go out there like really defiant kids would be out there for like, a month, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks even. And like, they'd be out there drawn in the sand 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, like getting a little bit cuckoo. It was like their form of isolation.
Sure.
And, they had a field of snow peas, I think, or like sugar snap peas, whatever peas.
Yeah, those like
thin, and they grew those, and then they made us harvest them. And so we would be out there bent over picking peas like a migrant, like a migrant worker, free labor basically, for like 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And man, those days my shit would be so green because half of every few peas I'd pick, I'd eat them.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, it was bizarre. But
do you know if that place is still in business?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's and when I was there, it was actually worse before I was there. It was worse like in the years leading up to me being there, and then I was there, it was still pretty fucked up. But it was in the they like, as more and more bad shit would happen, they would come under more scrutiny, and they would have to like loosen things up a little bit or tighten them down, however you want to look at it. And people would get fired, and then they would have to hire people more conservatively. And it got what I would call softer and softer as the years went on, to the point that it was basically just like a boarding school and not really like a kind of a hardened place anymore. I don't know. And then a few years like maybe 5 years after I left, the main guy that ran it, that was associated with the Pentecostal church, he died of a stroke. And so too much further after that, I didn't really bother keeping an eye on it at all. It got to a point where, like, right around that time, I think they quit the whole military element altogether. I don't know if something happened or not, but it, basically just kind of fizzled out into just like a place for kids, like a little like church school kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, let's just transition off horrible times onto better times. Let's do that. So you get out of that hellhole.
Yeah.
At what point, you've always been physically active your life.
Yeah,
At what point, I just want to really just kind of go through this like training evolution journey you've had, because you've just done just about everything at like the peak of power. So when did you start getting into CrossFit? That's the first thing that I knew about you that you actually like capitalized on, was like going to the games twice on a team. Like what got you into that?
Yeah, so I'd always been active. When I came back, I finished my senior year, and that interrupted my high school, so I wasn't really planning on going to college for any type of athletic sport or anything like that. Like, I was going to go get a degree, and then I figured I would do some type of athletic endeavor on my own. Like, I intended on still being an athlete. It was just going to be in an avenue that I could do privately outside of school athletics. So that kind of narrowed me down to either mixed martial arts or something like CrossFit, that were basically private organizations kind of. And I went to MMA for 3 weeks. And when my mom found out I was going, she said she was going to cut me off if I kept going.
Okay.
And she told me I had too good of a brain to go get it punched in and destroy it, which I kind of thank her for now.
That's fair. Yeah.
But because guys I know who have fought for a decade already have like slurred speech and stuff like that.
Basically walk around like Stallone. Yeah.
And but then I got to CrossFit, and it seemed really cool, because here were these athletes who not only looked the part, but it was like they were the complete athlete. They were strong, they were fast, they were conditioned, like they were functional. It was like, okay, if I wanted, if I could be one of these athletes or train like this, then I can basically physically do whatever challenge I want to do. I can lift whatever weight I want to lift. I can go run a long time. I could go climb a mountain. I could go swim across, swim 5 miles. Like, that was kind of the logic, the mentality. It was like they were creating superhumans, so to speak, which they kind of are. And so like they had all the named workouts, and I was like, oh, cool. Like, so they have all these standardized workouts that even these really good people do, and these really good people were posting their times. And and I was like, okay, like this, it wasn't too hard to see what athletes they were publicizing and how good they were, and then see them post a picture of this athlete doing this workout really fast. And so I remember I took, one of the classic CrossFit workouts that was like called Fran or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of the good high level games athletes, I forget who it was. It might've been like Jason Khalifa or someone like that, like did the workout, and he did it in like 2 minutes and 15 seconds or something like that. And they're like, wow, this is so fast. He didn't even drop the bar. And I was like, okay, like let's go try this, And I went to a Globo gym and put metal 25s on the bar.
God bless your soul.
And I did it in like 2 minutes and 5 seconds. And I had never, like, I didn't really know how to do a kipping pull-up. So I was kind of like, to everyone, I probably looked like my technique wasn't good. And so I probably looked like I was, seizuring my way up to get my chin above the bar.
Yeah.
Like I was still kind of swinging, but there was no rhythm or anything. I was kind of muscling them, and, but the thrusters were fine. And I kind of like semi-drop, semi-set the bar down. Hopefully they didn't get too mad at me, but I did the whole thing unbroken in like just shy of 2 minutes. And I was like, and I went back and looked at my clock, and I was like, I just beat that really good guy by like 8 seconds, and I don't even do this. And I was smart enough to know that, how talent and genetics works. I've been, into physical stuff since I was like 12. And so I was smart enough and intelligent enough to know at that point that, okay, if I haven't even trained this, then I must have a little bit of a knack for it, you know, or at least maybe this style of it, because I knew it was varied workouts and, you know, varied movements and stuff. And there's nuance between all that. So I started going in college, like when I was living in Gainesville, and I did it for like 6 to 8 months, kind of like once or twice a week for fun. I didn't really get into it, and didn't really get super competitive. I just kind of like got my feet wet. It wasn't until I moved to Jacksonville when I was like 21 or so, 22, that I got really into it, because a buddy of mine, they had like a CrossFit club there that worked out at a local CrossFit gym. And that was where I got more into it, because the two guys that owned it they were identical twins, and they were recon Marine veterans, and they were pretty like intense dudes. And they let UNF kids train there for like $40-$50 a month, because we were in college. And I went there, and it was like a huge bro environment, and it was great, man. It was like just like a bro fest all the time. We were just like lifting, smashing weights. Like, I'm surprised they weren't powerlifting, because it would, you know, and they were CrossFitting instead. But it suited, it's, you know, they were really lanky, so it kind of suited their physiology. And, you know, and that was a big CrossFit community in Jacksonville, was pretty big at the time. And that was where I got much better. I started there in January, and then I qualified for regionals as an individual like 2 months later.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we basically trained for like, this was back in like 2012. So regionals was still top 60 in the Southeast. So like, it was much more reasonable. It wasn't as insane as it is now.
Yeah.
With like the super regions and top 45, and then continually narrowing the playing field further and further. But like, I started CrossFit with like close to a 400 back squat, you know, close to a 400 deadlift. Like, I was pretty conditioned. You know, I had done gymnastics as a kid, so the gymnastic skills weren't very hard for me to pick up. Like, they were like, hey, this is a muscle up, and 15 minutes later I'd figured it out, you know, obviously with not the perfect technique, but they were like, hey, this is a double under, and I, you know, took a jump rope, and 2 hours later I had 100 straight. Like, you know, having that athletic background just allowed me to, it was like, if you told me what something was, I had enough kinesthetic awareness to figure out where I was inefficient, where I was efficient, and how to put my body into positions to make it more efficient and activate what muscles I needed to. So all the movement patterns were already there. I just had to figure out how to adapt them a little bit, because I had a very multi-sport background. So it wasn't like anything was ever foreign to me. Like, I already had everything ingrained. Went to regionals with them, they convinced me to help the team out. So I didn't go indie. I ended up just going on the team, because I still didn't know shit about competition and CrossFit. Like, my pacing wasn't there. Like, I wasn't that skilled of a competitor yet. And I don't even remember how we placed. It was so long ago. I think one of the girls couldn't, our girls weren't that great. I think one of the girls DNF'd a workout, like got us cut when they were still cutting. Yeah. I think she like got no rep on an overhead squat or something, because I don't know. But yeah, I remember going back in the warm-up area after our last event, because I was kind of pissed, and I ended up hitting like a 300-pound clean PR or something like that, because I was
just
like,
a rage PR.
The rage,
yeah,
the best kind, of PR. Oh yeah.
But and I ended up going to regionals again with them the next year, and then the year after that, like, gym drama led to them not wanting me to be on a team, or like promising me a spot and then giving it to someone else, and it was really underhanded the way it worked out. Because right around that time, I was starting to get better. I was going by myself I was in college still, about to graduate from nursing school. And I was driving around doing a lot of local competitions and winning them, and getting sponsorships and getting attention, and like making money from it. And like, if you can drive, like, I was in Jacksonville, and I'd drive a couple hours to Orlando on a weekend, go win first place, and get handed $1,000 cash. Like,
sweet.
For a college kid,
that's a lot.
That's a big deal.
That's
for me now. It's a lot. I mean,
yeah, you know, and I could do that, like buy a new surfboard or something, because I like to surf in Jacksonville. So like, that was like my little, and it was fun too, man. And it was fun being a physical badass. And so like, you know, and I met so many people and was getting attention, and I don't know if they like, and they weren't. and I don't know, I think they saw me getting good. And so I don't know if that was some sort of, ego insult to them. But because I was traveling more and I was training at a lot of different gyms, putting myself around better athletes. And they were very much like isolationist, like we only train with our gym kind of thing. Like it was very, very tribal. It was very tribal, as gym culture tends to be. And I was completely not aware of how tribal gym culture is. CrossFit, powerlifting, everywhere. Like people are very much about like their own gym, which doesn't really make sense to me. But
it doesn't.
But it's kind of funny at the end of the day. But I was putting myself around better athletes and trying to challenge myself and push myself. And when you train so much in the same gym, sometimes it can be better. It can be really good as a competitor to have different kinds of scenery, put yourself around better athletes, because they do different workouts, they expose different weaknesses, they train in different ways. And it's fresh, man. It's invigorating. Like if training starts to be a drag, you go to a different gym and I'd immediately have an insane session, because it's different energy.
Yep.
So that made stuff really weird at that gym. I think they started to get sour, and I should have had a spot based on my placing on that regionals team, and I didn't get it, and that was a big blow to me. And so I ended up graduating school and moved to South Florida, moved to West Palm from Jacksonville, and I had already kind of I had relationships established at a gym down there. They were actually sponsoring me with some of their supplements. And so I was down there, I was training for free at that gym, and just kind of casually, because my first nursing gig was a night shift gig. So I was just going to that gym and like also a Crunch Fitness that was 24 hours, just staying strong, man.
Yeah.
I was really strong. That was always like my advantage. I was really strong. Weight never gave me an issue, and RX weights were really light to me. So, and I've always been very flexible. So I never had any inefficiency in terms of position. So I was really efficient and really strong, and I could just chain together really big sets, when other people would be breaking. Endurance and gymnastics, because I was always heavier and more muscular. So I had to be really efficient with gymnastics. Like, over the years, my CrossFit training ended up evolving to basically training for a triathlon and trying to be a gymnast and lifting weights one day a week to not get DOMs whenever I went to a workout. But from there, I was coming up on a year working my night shift job, and I'm deadlifting 585 as a part-time CrossFitter, and squatting probably 550 or probably around the same weight, cleaning high threes and snatching probably about 300, I think. And my body weight was maybe 215, maybe 220. And a girl I knew down there who was a competitor reached out to me and asked me, like I knew from competing, I'd done probably 30 competitions by that point, local ones and bigger ones. And so like I knew other competitors, and I had podiumed probably 20 to 25 of those. And and most of the ones that I didn't podium, the only ones I didn't podium were usually really bigger ones where the pool got really big, and if you came in the top 10, like, if you came in the top 10 at any of these competitions, then you were basically like, we were all really good. And depending on what workouts came out, anyone in that top 10 could have been on the podium,
So
like
you're like Waterpalooza big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There were a lot of like back in 7, 8 years ago, when I was around 23 to 25, was like, I would say like the golden years of CrossFit, when Rich Froning was the man, and Matt Frazier was coming onto the scene, and regionals was huge. Like everyone would travel to regionals, and there was a lot of unity in CrossFit. It hadn't fractured so much, and there wasn't so much legal bullshit, and Reebok was still a sponsor, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And there were tons of private competitions like the OC Throwdown, the Summer Crush Games, Wadapalooza, a lot of these big competitions for people, most people nowadays probably aren't as familiar with, but there are a lot of big ones, and sponsors were everywhere. Local competitions were the thing, and they were putting out good money, like I said. And so I knew a lot of the people in the region. I rolled with that crew from Jacksonville for a while, and they were good competitors as well, like good indie competitors. And so I'd already competed at Wadapalooza like 2 or 3 years, and I was in the last elite heat with all the guys. The last heat of the day happening Sunday at like 10 p.m., because they're running behind schedule, and like training with, like, competing against all these games guys who were competing elite at these bigger private comps, when they were starting to pay out like $20,000-$30,000. And so I knew a lot of people. And so whenever, I guess there's a team in West Palm they're trying to put together, and I knew there were some other athletes in West Palm that had already been to the games on a team like a couple of years prior. And they're trying to put together another one because they wanted to make a return trip, like a repeat return trip a couple of years later. And this girl reached out to me who was a local competitor as well. She was like, "Hey, we're putting a team together. We have 3 girls, but we only have 2 guys. Like, you should reach out to Pierre, the gym owner, and come in and train." And I reached out. He was like, "Yeah, dude, come train." And I went in and snatched 300. And he was like, "All right, you're on the team."
You're in.
I went in and snatched 300 and like did a bunch of muscle ups. And he was like, "All right, like, you're on the team." And then I did a conditioning workout, and he was like, but I told him, man, I was like, "Man, I've been working night shift for the last year. Like, my cardio is garbage right now. You can't really push conditioning whenever your circadian rhythm's off, and when you're sleep deprived and like in a funk state all the time."
Yeah.
Within 3 weeks of that, I had switched to a day shift job somewhere else. And this day shift job, I was an RN at the time, still am. And the day shift job was a per diem job, which means you're basically a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of working 3 night shifts a week and having a fucked up schedule, I switched to 2 day shifts a week. So I'd only work Sunday, Monday. And Sunday would be my off day, and I would just go into the hospital, and all I'm doing is working and like getting steps in and taking it easy. So that was fine for recovery. Mentally, it would be stressful sometimes, but physically it was fine.
Yeah.
Monday would be my second day, and then Monday night I would come home after a 13-hour shift, and just Mondays sucked, man, because I would work and then I would come home and I would get my big endurance day out of the way after I got home from work. so
just make the whole day shitty. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other 6 days of the week were fine, man. I would add insult to injury, and I would come home tired as shit. And it was kind of like a handicap, because I basically made something I hate, made something I sucked at. I made it even worse to where whenever I would actually have to do it, I would be not sleep deprived,
right,
full energy, not tired already. So I was handicapping myself on something I already sucked at. I would come home from that job, long ass shitty shift, and it would be like 7, 8 p.m. at night. I would throw on gym shorts, wouldn't even like sit down on the couch, because if I did that, I wouldn't.
It'd be over. Oh yeah.
I would directly go in the gym, or in my garage. We're at a Concept 2 rower, and I would row 10K. And then I would get off that 10K row, and then I would run a 5K. And that would take, maybe an hour and a half or so roughly. And then I would put on a weight vest, and I would do 100 burpees. And that, that was like my standard endurance day. And I would get that out of the way, and it would suck, and I'd be absolutely destroyed, and I'd slam a bunch of food and pass out.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the week, it was like I got over the hump, and the rest of the week was just like coasting and fun team. Like, it was still hard, like, but not rowing a 10K in a garage in the dark with no music.
Yeah. Sure. You didn't put any music on for that?
No.
By design?
I would shut the door, and I would make it dark.
Own the darkness. And get
basically, like, I made it psychological, not just physical.
Yeah.
So a little bit of psychological hardening there too, and which I don't think anyone knows how to do these days or understands the value of it when it comes to competition. So just like creating that iron mind, so that no matter how, like, I made it suck more than it would in competition, so that no matter how painful or shitty things got in competition, like, I still, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, man. And we ended up, we trained really hard and did pretty good in the open. Got a invitation to compete at regionals.
Mhm.
Regionals workouts came out, and Pierre, our team leader, was like a mad scientist, man. Guy's a hell of a competitor. Shout out to Pierre Suero. He had already competed at the games in 2012, but he was like, he took those team workouts and we all tested our segments that we were going to do, and we mixed and matched and put our order in exactly the right spot, shaving off seconds and seconds, because we were like we were going to fucking go, man. We weren't taking this shit lightly. Like, we were all committed. And like we weren't all like full-time athletes. We weren't all the same height. We weren't all like perfect athletes. We all had our strengths. We weren't such a balanced team in terms of ability level. Like, Pierre was good all around. My buddy Eric was smaller. He had a good strength to body weight ratio, but he still only weighed about 165. So, you know, he wasn't snatching 275. He was snatching 225, 235. And I was pretty decent all around, but I sucked at running. So that, you know, I'm not built to be a runner. I trained my running insanely hard the next year, but still, like, this year my mile was probably like 7 minutes, you know, 7:20, which, like, at the games, these guys are running, you know, 6 or sub 6.
Yeah.
Usually between 5 and 6 minute miles. But like, Eric was a gymnast by career, by trade. So he could do, you know, 20 to 25 unbroken ring muscle ups. He could damn near do 30 unbroken. He can basically run upside down on his hands. You know, he can pull sleds upside down on his hands, you know, crazy stuff like that. But I still had a lot of gymnastic talent, even though my body weight was heavy. Like, I could do, you know, sets of 50 handstand push-ups. You know, I can still do full deficit strict handstand push-ups for like sets of 10. You know, things like, I can still handstand walk. Like, my overhead game's pretty good and my mobility is good. So I have the efficiency thing. But we ended up really, really dialing in those workouts, and we went out to regionals, like, thinking, you know, it was a challenge, but we went out there, and like, first event, we freaking murdered everyone in our heat. We finished the workout first event, and we were just waiting at the finish line. The next team that finished behind us was like a minute behind us.
Oh, jeez.
Which was,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah, and we were like, holy shit. We were in the second to last heat based on our finish or whatever. And we were like, holy shit. And we were all just kind of like really impressed with ourselves. And there was another team out of Miami that was really good, and they beat us by 1 second in that workout.
Oh.
And the whole weekend was literally just us and that other team going back and forth. And they ended up edging us out by a couple points, and they got first and we got second. But I didn't give a fuck, dude. Like, that was probably, it's hard to describe that feeling of, like, you know, of being bumped off the team from a previous gym a couple years ago, and kind of like, you know, having to deal with that adversity, and watching them still go and compete, like, knowing that you should have been out there, and then like kind of dipping out for a year and then coming back, and then all of a sudden you're here getting told, you know, you're going to the CrossFit Games, which at the time, that was like all I gave a shit about.
Yeah.
And you know, and just being like walked up onto the competition floor, like getting to jump up on the podium, like that was, to me, like a CrossFit competitor at that time, that was a dream come true, man. That was the start of like opening so many doors for me, opportunities and meeting people, and, you know, the way that, you know, the basically becoming an elite athlete, and entering, like, going from this level to this level, because at that point you're that upper echelon, you're training around those hot, like, that your competitors are other high level athletes, and it's a new game entirely. And you got, you know, most people will never understand, you know, that level of competition, that level of commitment, dedication, the fine details that go into that. You know, your life revolves around it. Things like, it's hard to maintain life balance when you're competing at that level and training that much. Like, you can't do it all. You have to, like, there has to be sacrifices. You know, your friend circle gets limited. You're skipping social occasions. you know, you can do, like, I did pretty well. I'd bring my own food with me to things, and you know, but I was only working 2 days a week. I had freed up a lot of my time to bring in as little stress from from things outside of that, to where, like, in terms of life stress, like, I had none. And that was by design. And if it was a stressor, like, get the fuck out, you know. The only stress I had was a little bit at work to give me income. So I could, you know, I could do my thing and afford good food and pay my rent and have a little bit extra to be comfortable. And then everything else was training, you know, training, you know, 4 or 5, 6 hours a day. I was, you know, that first year we went, and that was the last year that first year we qualified, came in second. And then one of our other athletes, who was a Masters Games athlete champion, he had won 40 to 45 a couple of years in a row. And he knew some bigger names like Chris Hinshaw, Rich Froning, he was a Reebok athlete, a lot of these other guys. He knew a lot, he had a lot of connections, and he trained out of Hustle Hard with us. And so he got us an invite to go up to Cookeville and train with Rich Froning and their team. Because I think this was 2016. So this was when Rich left Indy and went team.
His first team, yeah.
Train with. Yep. And so we took a trip up to Cookeville, just the guys on our team. The girls couldn't go. One of our girls was in a medical residency to become a doctor at the time. And so our girls couldn't go. They had commitments. And one of our other girls ran a local CrossFit gym in the area. But I think both of them did. Both of the other ones did. We went to Cookeville and trained with Rich, and that was where I met Matt Frazier, because Matt came to train with us. And that was like, you know, that was, again, another experience where it was like, okay, this is the real deal. Like, this is how these guys train. It was nothing but training all day.
Yeah.
And I found out afterwards, like towards the end of the week, I found out afterwards that, you know, Rich did make things a little bit harder to kind of like test us a little bit.
Sure,
you know?
he did.
It was, there was I wouldn't call it hazing, but it was like he did up the bar a little bit, just to, like, you know, probably out of a little bit of ego. But that first day, man, we got there, we booked this sick Airbnb, like got all this food, took a road trip up there, like walked around, got all this food, like we're kicking it, hanging out in this big house, man. And we had gotten a sponsor to give us like $5,000 to cover the trip. And so it wasn't even on our dime, dude.
Yeah.
And so that just made it even more fun, because there was no sting of it costing money.
Right.
And so you know, we felt like fucking professional athletes.
Isn't that unreal though? That feeling though?
Oh,
isn't that the best feeling? Like, if you're smiling, like, it's the best feeling. I know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these are some of the like most fun times I've ever had, and you know, just going up there, hanging out, knowing that like you just got free cash to come up and train and be awesome, and like wear a shirt basically. And you know, the next day we like, and I was about to go train with fucking Rich Froning. Like, you know, that was I'm never fanboy over people, but there's still, you know, everyone's just another person at the end of the day. But it was like, to me, coming from being like some nobody, you know, on a team, like, you know, competing in a local competition circuit, to like climbing that ladder, and now you're like, oh, now we're training with like the #1 athlete that does this. It's like that's real, you know. And we went and trained with them at their gym, and they beat it, like a lot of the really CrossFit endurance kind of stuff they beat us on, but there was some stuff that we fucking beat them on. And that was and that like finishing some of those workouts and like edging them out, their differentiating factor, as good as Rich was how good their girls were. And our girls were good, but they had some limitations. And so, you know, a lot of people would focus on Rich when they focus on Mayhem, but man, it was how good their girls were. They had 3 really beast girls, and that was the differentiating factor for CrossFit teams at that time. Like, it's not that hard to find dudes who are good at everything.
Right.
But to find girls that can do, 15, 20 muscle ups and snatch clean, clean 245 and snatch 200 pounds, 215, like that's a needle in a haystack. And they were able to recruit because of the notoriety of their team. They could get high level individual female competitors to move to Cookeville and join their team. And, girls that were like individual level games and regional athletes to like move to Cookeville, because it's like, if you were getting invited to join and compete on their team, you basically knew you had a really good shot at making it on the podium at the CrossFit Games. And so if you're like a 15th, 20th place games level CrossFit girl, CrossFit competitor, individual, and you're good, but you're not good enough to quite compete with like Katrin or Tia or any of those high level girls. Well, and Rich invites you to be on his team. Well, there's your free ticket to go be on the podium at the CrossFit Games. I mean, it's not free. Like, you still pay your dues, but you're doing what you do anyways, Right. But I remember, beating them, and like we would keep it together, like in the gym, and keep training. And then we'd walk out of the gym and I'd look at Pierre and I'd be like, oh, we fucking kicked their just totally hyped, like just,
We've made it. We've made it. We're gonna win the games.
Yeah, chest bumping, like super hyped. But then we'd get a text message 30 minutes later from Rich after we had just trained for 2 hours, and he'd be like, hey guys, go eat a bunch of food. We're gonna meet at my house in 45 minutes. And we're like, wait, what? We just trained for 2 hours.
Was that only on the days that you guys would edge him out on something?
Say that, yeah.
Was it just those, or was it every day?
The frequency bumped up on the days they responded poorly.
Yeah. Honestly, that was damn near every day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was damn near every day. That first day, we trained at his gym for like 2 hours, did like 50 snatches at 225, did like a fucking rower rope. Our warm up was an actual workout, like a huge chipper, and then just like a huge snatchy mom. And of course, that was the one we won, because I was ripping that thing. I was not gonna give ground on that. And then we had like a 2-hour break, and I remember being so hungry that I was smashing donuts for calories, because I was like, I can't get enough calories in.
Yeah.
Like I was making part of my intake processed food so it'd be calorically dense enough, because we went to his house and we basically did like another hour's worth of workouts with a bunch of people. Like, he had a crew there, man. Like, there were like some of the games level athletes from the teen division were there with us, and those kids were freaks. And we were at his house, and I was like, man, this is so bizarre. It was still bizarre to me to be there, like training at this dude's garage, which he had another full gym setup in his garage. And then I'm like, hey man, like, I went up to him, I was like, hey, like, I really gotta pee. Is there anywhere I can pee? He's like, oh yeah, just go in my house. And I'm like, going to the house? Like, it still felt weird. He's like, yeah, dude, the back door's open, just like go in my house. And I went in this house, and this is his house before the big house he has now. Yeah. It was like it's still a pretty big, nice house, but it was like, probably like a $300,000 house. And I walked in, and I still remember thinking, there was no CrossFit anything in that house.
Really?
There was no CrossFit nothing. There was no sign of CrossFit. There was no barbell anything. There's no plates or anything. It was all just like very like middle class fancy family photos of like him and his wife, and she does, like, she's fit, she's healthy, but she's not a competitor.
Right.
She's very much just like, like I wouldn't go so far as to say a normal girl, but like, pretty normal, and not like super huge into being a workout fitness competitor. And I could tell that she was like, probably had a conversation with something.
That's what I was going to ask. She was like, nothing in the house. Nothing.
Yeah.
Garage.
We're not turning our house into a CrossFit gym, kind of. I know that conversation happened, but
yeah,
it was funny, man. We trained there, and then we, I think after that, we like maybe met up. We trained 3 times that day. We met up at his dad's house after that. and trained in like he had like almost like a barn. I think they called it the barn, which was like another full CrossFit gym. And we did a workout. And this was where I learned the amount of volume that they do and why these guys can compete for 4 days straight and still be okay on day 4. And this was my introduction to that level of high volume training. And I thought I trained high volume. We would do a workout that was pretty challenging, like a 15-20 minute workout. And like you would go into a gym and do 3 sets of 12 on bench. We would do 3 sets of that workout. So we would do a workout. Let me see if Matt Frazier showed up at about this time, and we did a waterfall workout, like a team waterfall workout. It was like 50 assault bike calories, like 50 30-pound wall balls to 12 feet. And this might not be exact because it was so long ago, but I still very much remember everything that happened. It was like 50 deficit handstand push-ups, 150-pound soft medicine ball over the shoulders. And then I think there was like 10 or 15 rope climbs. And we did that. Then we would do it, and then we would have like a 5-10 minute break, and then we would do it again. And then we have like a 5-10 minute break, and then we would do it again. And so I'm doing like, 150 reps of a 150-pound medicine ball over the shoulder and 150 strict deficit handstand push-ups. No, I think we were kipping. I think we let us kip, but it was still.
He let you kip.
Yeah.
He let you kip. That was nice.
Yeah. And I was fucking destroyed. And I remember my arm, I had like a weird sensation in my arm. So I think that last set at like maybe 120 or 130 deep ball or handstand push-ups, I was smart, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna tap out right now because I don't want to. It's like day 1, So I just my arm is fine. It was just, I think my muscle cramped or something, and so we went back home after that and ate, and we were all just like fucking wrecked, man. And we were eating food, and we get a text from Rich. He goes, hey guys, it's like 9 o'clock at night, and we've been going since like 9 a.m. And he goes, hey guys, we're gonna go play hockey.
Blow off some steam, have some fun.
He goes, hey guys, we're gonna go play hockey. He like, everyone in that town knows him. He's like, I know a guy that owns a hockey rink. He's gonna let us in after hours. I have the key to the local hockey rink. Meet us at McDonald's in 30 minutes. And so we meet in the McDonald's parking lot, and Rich comes out of McDonald's with a bunch of bags of McDonald's and gives us a couple bags of McDonald's. He's like, hey, I bought a bunch of food, eat this. We're gonna go play hockey. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, none of it made sense.
Yeah, this is like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory at this point. What are we doing? Where are we going?
Yeah, and then the McDonald's on top of that.
Right.
I didn't eat McDonald's in 10 years, and here's the number one fucking guy giving me a bag of McDonald's. And we went to hockey, and I hadn't put rollerblades on in probably 10 years. And I don't think I've ever played hockey. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, dude, I'm exhausted. I'm fucking exhausted. And I'm about to play a skill sport.
Yeah.
And I'm just praying to Jesus, please don't let me tear my ACL. Please don't let me tear my meniscus. Please don't fuck up my back. And we played hockey for an hour, and I was okay. And I even fucking checked a guy. And almost checked myself in doing so. It was like one of those scenes out of a movie where my fucking skates are slipping all over the place. But yeah, we played hockey and went back, and I slept 10 hours, thankfully, and got up the next day, and we trained for another 5 or 6 days, and it was almost like that every single day. And that was where I got my nickname, the Rhino. He gave it to me because I was
that's interesting.
Okay.
We ran a 5K one day. We had a track day at Tennessee Tech, and we ran 5,000 meters, 200 sprint, 200 recovery jog, which for me was like 200 jog, 200 walk. My calves blew up at like a mile or two in, and I was walking across the field. Everyone lapped me, and they were already done. Then I was walking across the field, and Rich goes, like, I must have looked super jacked or something. And he was like, "Is that Ian?" And Pierre was like, "Yeah, bro." He's French. He has kind of a French accent. And Rich was like, "He looks like a fucking rhino." And then from there, it just stuck. And I was the Rhino, been the Rhino ever since. But that was kind of like the, qualifying for the games and then going to train with them. That was just like, hey, this is how it is now, and
yeah.
From there, we made the 2016 games. It was a blast. It was everything I hoped for it to be, and it was over way too quickly. Going out to Cali, the last year it was in Cali, like going to the the athlete dinner, like sitting there getting briefed for the events next to Camille Bazinet and all these like OG CrossFitters that, you're just seeing everyone in the flesh. And it's like, it was nuts, man. It was the whole shebang, the real deal. We went and competed next to all these people, and we're in the warm-up area next to them, and they're talking to me and asking me questions on warm-ups and stuff. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, like like I hadn't kind of self-actualized at that point
Right.
yet. And we ended up coming in like maybe 20th place, 21st place, which I was totally cool with. We had some events that we didn't do well on because we had weaknesses, and we had some events that we, came top 5 on, which was really cool, and got put on the highlights and, got streamed on ESPN3. And like, I still have screenshots that people sent me of them, like covering me, like doing movements and stuff. And came back, and we had put ourselves on the map at that point. I got drafted to go be in the Pro Grid League at that point, and came back from the games, had a 2-week break, and then flew off to Utah for a month to go do the Pro Grid League CrossFit offshoot that they had, and got to lived basically in Provo, Utah for like 6 to 8 weeks. Met a ton of, basically like an adult athlete summer camp that was paid again. It wasn't a ton of money because the Grid League was running out of money at that point. That was their last year, but I still made a little bit more than my nursing pay to basically hang out with all my, I got paid. I think maybe it might've been like about $1,000 or $1,500 a week to basically hang out, work out, be treated like an athlete. Got free food and got to, train and practice competing and walk around and go out to eat and sit in a hot tub and bullshit with my friends and like, get high and play video games and
just do everything a pro athlete does.
Literally.
That
was my little
no difference.
There's no difference. And which is super fun, and like go do fun stuff outside on our off days and like check out the town, check out Utah.
It's a gorgeous area. It is.
Hike waterfalls and that ended, and then training, like that was my off season. Like intense competition was my off season.
Yeah.
And I had like I took the winter off, and after January 1st, it was kind of an unsaid thing, but it was like, all right, training starts again. And Pierre kind of like started up the group text again. That was kind of quiet. And he was like, hey, you guys want to go back? And we're all just like, yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
And 2017 was the first year it was in Madison. And to kind of put it in a nutshell, my training IQ drastically improved exponentially. I got way, way smarter about my training that year. And that year, instead of all of our training being team training, a lot of our training we were doing on our own. And then we had a couple dedicated team days. And so that was the year that like I got because I had some little nagging pains going into 2016 that held me back. And 2017, I was super smart about my training. Like I'm talking I'm talking if I was running 10 miles a week and 8 of those miles would be, or 7 of those miles would be on a true form to save impact on my joints.
Yeah.
Like small details like that, like, you know, doing a ton of reverse hypers to condition my lower back to volume without stressing my discs, and put, you know, like doing things like that to spare my body while getting the most stimulus out of everything. I didn't need strength. I needed to be a better runner. I needed to be an ace on rope climbs as much as I could be. I went from like barely being able to do a legless rope climb to doing arm over arm rope climbs with just chalk. I got my mile time down to 6:20 or 6:30 at 220 pounds. I got my consecutive muscle ups up to 17 unbroken at 220 pounds. It was all gymnastics and training for a triathlon for me. I was rowing 20 to 25,000 meters a week. I was swimming probably 3 to 5 miles a week, and I was running 10 miles a week, and I was doing, you know, an assault bike workout would be 10 Tabata sets on like a 1-to-1 rest or less. I got to the point where like my ability to cycle my lactate threshold, my ability to cycle lactate and process lactate was so fast. I could do you know, an 78 to 80 calorie Tabata assault bike and take a 3-minute break and repeat it for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 sets. You know, like I was so insanely conditioned, man. I'll never have the time and the lack of stress to be at that level, I don't think, ever again. That was like that level of balance. I got stronger than that after that in powerlifting, but I'll never be. I was rowing like a 642K. I was rowing a 642K, running a 620 mile at 220 pounds, doing close to 20 unbroken muscle ups while having a 600-pound sleeve squat, a 700-pound deadlift, like 689 deadlift, and like 3 or 4 weeks before the 2017 games, I squatted 225 for 101 reps straight, unbroken. Like, and I was doing it, and it wasn't hurting me. And I went into that CrossFit Games 2017 games, and like I felt invincible. Like the team dynamic shifted around a little bit because our best girl was in an accelerated nursing program, and so her performance dropped from 2016 to 2017, although she was still very good. And my performance, from holding us back a little bit on some events, not others, on some of the running based events in 2016, went to being like one of the most solid people on the team in 2017, where like my muscle ups were on point, my strength was on point. Not one point there was one running workout where I got paired with Pierre, where it was a partner run, and he fucking destroyed me on that because he runs like a 5-minute mile. And so he just basically drugged me the whole way because we had a little like rope to, it's like a wrist strap around our wrist. Between us. It was like a swim run. It was a biathlon, and he fucking drugged me the whole way. And I got DOMs in my quads from running, which was like, oh, what?
Yeah, what?
That was how hard he was pushing me, which was fine. That was the only event that challenged me. And after that, I basically like, there were some events where I carried the team a little bit. We had like worm events where we had the big sandbag. You know, if like the girl behind me was struggling, like if we were doing like 100 squats with that worm, which are basically like, you know, unilateral sandbag squats to an extent, she would be like, "Hey, dude, I'm getting tired," and I would, if I was on the front, which the front sucked because you had more weight, she would be like, "Hey, I'm getting tired." I'd be like, "Scoot back," and she would pop the worm off her shoulder on a rep and scoot back like 6 inches, and I would pop the worm off my shoulder and scoot back like 6 inches, which would basically drop her weight like 20 pounds and up my weight like 20 to 30 pounds. And I'd be fine, you know, and I could handle it, be fine. And we ended up placing probably around the same that year, like 21st or 22nd maybe. And and it was again like another phenomenal experience, but it wasn't the same as the year before in terms of like the newness of it. And it was still fun. Madison wasn't the same as Cali though. Like
that's what I hear.
The hype, the hype, the excitement, the buzz, like the epicness, you know, it wasn't that huge stadium. It wasn't the tennis stadium. Like the same kind of flair of it wasn't the same. And it was going to be there for like the next 3 or 4 or 5 years or however, like it was in Madison consecutive years after that. You know, the obstacle course was fun. There were some new elements they did that were fun, but like, I remember it didn't feel as profound of an experience. It felt a little bit more routine at that point. And at that point, I had already linked up with Hybrid and was programming their CrossFit program for them. And so after that, I pretty much already knew that I was going to shift my focus away from that and shift my focus towards powerlifting, because at that point, I basically was smart enough to understand that if I wanted to get any, like the level I had pushed things to, I knew that what was holding me back was my body weight. I was like, I knew if I wanted to be better, I knew that I could be an individual level competitor. And some people might call bullshit on that because they're like, oh, if you didn't do it, then you won't know. But like based on my event times compared to other athletes' times, I knew that if I could do 20 to 25 unbroken muscle ups and I could run a 5.5 minute mile, that there was no reason I couldn't go out there and come top 3 to top 5 on an individual floor, because I had better numbers everywhere else than all the other athletes. It was just, I would, you know, and I would have, and like really high rep open stuff, which I still question online competition to this day, because I was one of those athletes that like would kind of get edged out in some of those online competitions, and then I'd show up to in-person competitions, and all the people that would beat me in online competitions like the Open, when they show up in person, were very underwhelming, and I would smash them. And I don't think, I think online competitions are full of shit. I think online competitions are completely full of shit. I think everyone cheats, which they do cheat. Cheaters get caught all the time. I think, and I've made so many posts about this, basing a $300,000, like starting the funnel for a $300,000 prize at the time, $375,000 off of an honor system, basically online competition. Are you fucking kidding me? Like that was, I hated that. I wanted them to bring back in-person sectionals where you had to be judged in person, because man, like there were so many cheaters. Like I knew so many people that like athletes that I knew in the area that I've seen them do similar workouts and they can't do it. And I would hear people would tell me about athletes cheating on their scores. And the judging standard in your own gym with your best friend judging you, like there's no way you're getting every single rep in it, you know. And at that level, the difference between placings is 1, 2. Like in the Open, 1 rep is 30 spots. You know, you're tying for 30 spots, and then if you get an extra rep, you're moving up 30 spots. Like, so I had a lot of issues with that, you know, and I knew if I wanted to go indie, like I probably have to cheat a little bit. I didn't really like that in terms of like the Open, cheating in the Open, and I knew I'd have to lose like 10 or 15 pounds, and just like, and to me at that time, like fitness didn't really mean like losing muscle and getting smaller. And I was like, man, and honestly, like I didn't really enjoy that kind of training. I'm like, man, I'm getting stronger so easily, but I'm fighting what my body wants to do right now. And it like didn't really make sense. Like I was doing something that was very contraindicative to, you know, my genetics and how I'm built. And so I just said, and I had already done a powerlifting meet by that point. I forgot to mention that. A buddy of mine talked me into doing a powerlifting meet. in the off season right after grid between 2016 and 2017, and I didn't prep for it. He showed me how to do low bar squat, and I did like 3 low bar squat sessions to figure out how to low bar. And I went and I was weighing 220, and I did like some insane cut. I did an 11.6% body weight cut for a 24-hour weigh-in, which was like 23 or 26 pounds in 24 hours. And I was a nurse at the time, so I had IV bags and stuff. So I was able to, I dropped 26 pounds and put on 30, and in the time frame, and woke up. I went from being like the most depraved I had felt my entire life to being like the strongest I had been in my entire life. Like I could feel my fucking pulse in my head. I know, being at Westside, you're very familiar with all that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I ended up totaling 1,600 with no prep my first meet at 198, which was pretty cool. I hit 30-pound PRs across the board in every lift, lifetime PRs across the board in every lift with like no prep.
Yeah.
And it was fun, man. And it was like the meet that I went to, like it was new. I wasn't at a powerlifting level yet where it was elitist. It was very just like local, good old boys, blue collar people. It was a great experience. People were in the warm up area, like helping each other out. Like, there was no like side eyeing or any weird shit like that. Like one of the guy that won that meet was like in the warm up area giving me tips, because I didn't know how a powerlifting meet was really even ran. Ended up coming second overall in that meet to the guy that won, that was giving me tips, who ended up being a really good lifter, helping me a lot over the next few years. But that experience, I was pretty much already decided I was gonna continue with this group in Miami, which I ended up doing that. And after that 2017 year, I went down to Miami and linked up with that hybrid crew and pushed powerlifting.
Let me pause you real quick before we move on to that, because this is a great segue into the next section of your life, which is powerlifting.
Yeah.
I know Dustin has got a lot of questions just on what you've been saying here. I haven't
really let you guys talk at all. I'm just
this is great. This is gold.
We might just need to do a second podcast.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. We can do that. My big question on everything you just said, and you actually led into it a little bit, where you mentioned that you couldn't get the calories in without eating processed food. Yes. And the first thing that popped in my mind was the Michael Phelps, tells of him eating 9,000 to 10,000 calories a day, because what he's doing.
Yep.
And then when you said Rich told you guys to meet at McDonald's, in my mind, I thought to myself, well, he's going to walk out of there with like McDonald's in his hand, because that's like the ultimate anabolic food. That's what Dave Palumbo always says. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, was that like a habitual thing with him? Like he would train all day, maybe you never see him eat really next to anything, and then like he just have like 3 or 4 Big Macs?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that, because that at this point I've come across so many athletes and I've seen so many different things that it all just kind of jumbles together, and then someone will ask me a question and it'll like open up a whole box of stuff, and I'll remember stuff that I like completely forgot.
Repressed away. Yeah.
Rich would eat a solid meal in the morning, and then he would eat a solid meal at the night, and then basically throughout the entire day it was really bizarre to me, he would survive on like chocolate milk and like just like almost drinking calories, and then calories like that when he could fit it in,
like full fat milk, like fatty milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just and that was, it was really weird to me. He wasn't ever really eating solid food. And then of course, as I became a more seasoned competitor, unintentionally, without being like, this is what Rich is doing, this is what I should be doing. Sure. That's basically what my diet evolved into, was like a huge amount of calories in the morning. Throughout the day, I would just kind of graze and drink liquid calories, and then just like a huge amount of calories at night. Like during the day, like I was able to up my performance because I was sweating so much in Florida. Like I would be grazing on a meal I would bring. I didn't do like full liquid, but I wasn't eating like a solid, I wasn't pushing my body into like full on parasympathetic mode by like a big, huge junk, like, you know, massive amount of calories that it couldn't really digest that well. I would make I'd take a gallon of water to dump out like a little bit of it. And then I would put like 150 carbs of branch cyclic dextrin, maybe like 5 to 10 grams of sodium, some no salt alternative potassium, a little bit of creatine, like 50 grams of hydrolyzed whey, and like maybe a little bit of like an additive for flavor of some sort. And I would basically go through like one of those a day. But the fluid, the carbs, and the sodium, you know, I was basically doing my version of what he was doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I probably could have done the full fat chocolate milk thing also and been fine as well because of the sodium and potassium that's in that also. Like probably didn't make that much of a fucking difference. But yeah, that was kind of how he did it. And it's kind of funny to us because, like, you know, it was so foreign to us that was kind of how he did things. But yeah, that would, to answer your question.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're doing that much volume, especially that much like barbell volume. Like you don't want heavy food sitting in you all the time. Like that's just not conducive to what you're trying to do, man, at all.
No.
Like, no.
And you don't want it to be anything that your body has to work that hard to break down.
Right.
You don't want it to be super high fiber. You don't want it to be like, you know, you want it to be very easily assimilatable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Dustin, do you have a quick question to ask on anything that he's talked about before we move on to his next phase of his career?
You can go.
You can go. All right, you're in Miami. Now we're gonna powerlift. We're gonna steer into our body
favorite place.
and just up the body weight. We're just gonna push it.
Man, I still had no concept of how to do like a proper progression. Like I had an idea of a deload, and I had the idea, I knew what a taper was, but it was still very much not where it needed to be in terms of powerlifting. But I had such a high tolerance to volume and such a high work capacity that I was able to initially tolerate probably unintelligent training methods. I remember not even really giving myself a break. I remember finishing the 2017 CrossFit Games, being done with the last workout, everyone's taking ice baths, and I put my sleeves on and my powerlifting shoes and went over in the warm-up area and did box squats. After doing like 3 or 4 days of training, I loaded up like 400 pounds and was doing triples and box squats just to like, I was like, I gotta start changing my muscle fibers and training my nervous system
today, now.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Like, you know, because that's smart. And oh man, but I went to Miami and like I was going to be a 220 competitor, so I was like a little bit over 220 pounds, so I wasn't really so focused on gaining weight and getting bigger. It wasn't even that, like, it wasn't that much of a lifestyle change. It wasn't that much of a diet change, except I could eat more solid food in the middle of the day. It was just, okay, let me, now I can like do drugs. It was like, well, now it was like now like I'm in powerlifting and this is what everybody does. So like I can do this. I still didn't really do like what I did was not, you know, if I could talk about that and you'd be like, oh, that's not really anything crazy. Whatchamacallit, what was I gonna say? But like, it was like now I can basically add in things that I wouldn't have you know, ever considered messing with during CrossFit, because it's just not conducive to conditioning and cardiovascular capacity. And I can stop doing all of the things that were basically limiting my physiology, like the triathlon training and the gymnastics. I can cut out all that volume and I can strength train 4 days a week. Yeah. So it was just taking off the brakes, really. It wasn't really it wasn't really adding a lot of fuel to the flame. It was just taking off the brakes and letting my body do what it wanted to do, and upping the recovery and basically taking all the volume that I was doing through conditioning and gymnastics and changing that to strength training. And I think Steffi was programming for me at the time, which probably was a bad idea. I handled it, but she was training me like how she trained herself, 130-pound girl. And I don't know of any other power lifter that's a dude at my weight that could handle that. I handled that. I developed some things that hurt doing it, because I was doing top sets 3 times a week. I was doing like a top set of squats on Monday, a top set of safety bar box squats on Wednesday, and doing a fucking top set of deadlifts on Friday, for 12, 16 weeks, obviously descending in reps, increasing in intensity, leading towards the meet. And I handled it. I aggravated some things, but I was still able to compete just fine. And went from a 1,600 total, added 213 pounds to my total. Went from 1,600 to 1,813, and got a little bit more intelligent after that, started programming for myself. And I want to say around this time was when I had my snowboarding fall in 2019. I had a snowboarding fall, landed on I took a jump at I was 225, 230 pounds, probably 230 by this point, thinking that I was still 200 pounds. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go through the freestyle part. Took a jump and balance was off and leaned a little bit too far back and landed just straight on hard packed icy snow going fast from like 4 feet in the air and just smashed my sacrum. And I was pretty fucked after that for a little while, and I was set to lift in the animal cage like 2 months later, and rep out, do a 700-pound deadlift AMRAP. And I didn't think anything was disc related. I didn't have any sciatic pain. It like that jumbled up a bunch of stuff down there. It really fucked my SI joints up, to the point that I like couldn't really load, and I like jacked up my lumbar spine a good bit. I thought it was just SI, and it probably was mostly SI. That probably didn't fully damage my discs, but training and not really understanding, how those things can kind of propagate if you don't give them time to heal, and how slow they are to heal. Like I kept training after that, and when I was out of, I would flux in and out of pain because I would get in pain, compete, make it through the competition, get stronger, obviously, but I wasn't, doing certain structures the justice they needed in terms of recovery time. Like just because you're out of pain doesn't mean something's finished healing. Mm-hmm. So I ended up training for the animal cage without deadlifting. I was just belt squatting and doing chest supported row work. Mm-hmm. And I was still getting stronger because you can basically do a belt squat close to near identical with my sumo deadlift stance setup. Yeah. To the point, like I was training I had adapted it to train the exact same muscles, and I wasn't loading my lumbar spine or my hips, my SI joint really. I was just loading my hips. So I was worked up to doing belt squats with like 900 plus pounds on the winning belt squat. Yeah. And like I had skinny 55-pound plates, like almost.
Yeah, it's comps like jammed all the way on there. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. And that was fun. It's pretty cool.
It's cool to load a machine up. It's cool. Yeah.
And I ended up going to the animal cage and I pulled 700 for 9 reps. And that was the same time I think I came up to West Side with everyone and met you guys.
Yep.
And, and went from there and did Boss of Bosses the next year and totaled 1913. Went transitioned to wraps, totaled 1913, and kept kind of having on and off back pain, and then I took a 3-month break after that because that prep was really rocky. I don't know how I pulled off like I had a really shitty knee prep and I still bumped up or it might have been 1901. It was 1813 to 1901. I still jumped up over 1900.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I pulled that off. My bench went up a bunch, and I still pulled a heavier deadlift, and then I added reps to my squat. So obviously I got poundage out of that. And it was enough to get to 1901, and I gained weight. That was my first 242 meet.
Oh, okay.
And because I just kept growing, and I got tired of cutting to 220. So I stopped cutting to 220. And that was 1913 or 1901. And I took like a 3-month break after that to let my back chill out. And back got pain-free again. And then I had like the best meet prep of my life that I've ever had, and went from 1901 to 2001. And that was, I think, February of 2020. And did that. And after that, we ended up like, that was February. And then March after that was when COVID started. And then, of course, that fucked everything up for a while.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
COVID starting was like basically the catalyst to drastically shifting my life around, because I was dating a girl that lived in Australia. That was the catalyst kind of to start all that hybrid drama. That was the catalyst to basically kind of ruin my relationship with the girl I was dating in Australia, because borders shut down. That led to, all that stuff happening in hybrid, which led to me leaving hybrid, starting my own business, which, led to a bunch of other drama happening down there, and a bunch of people that I was friends with kind of turning out to be like, they say, it's best you get the best glimpse of someone's character, not when everything's going great, but when everything's going really bad. And stuff went really bad, and I got to see, who people were on their bad days.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're not who I thought you were. So I stuck around Miami for a year to kind of see if people would come around, and they never did. It just got worse and worse.
Yeah.
And so when my lease was close to being up, like maybe a little over a year, like about a year ago now, last July, I was like, yeah, it's time to switch. So I left and went to Tampa for a little bit, and I've been travel nursing ever since.
Yeah. You trained at Ben's gym?
I've trained at Ben's gym. When I went to Tampa for a few months, I went from last July until October. My mom lives in Tampa.
Oh, rock on.
In the area. Clearwater.
Clearwater, yes, that's Tampa for the most part.
It's all the same thing. Yeah. I fly into Tampa next Thursday, and so I'll be there for a little bit, and I'll probably go train at MI40 a little bit. But when I was there, I was training at MI a little bit, and then they have a really nice Golds there.
Do they?
It's well, so no, not Golds. Powerhouse.
Yeah, that's still in business. The Tampa Powerhouse. This is the single level one with the turf.
The Powerhouse that used to be downtown a long time ago moved to a huge facility at a different location that has black turf in the middle.
Black turf. Okay, I haven't seen that one. Okay.
Yeah, so Powerhouse moved. I'm pretty sure I'm getting this right. I think it's Powerhouse, still Powerhouse. And it's this huge, big square. If you haven't been back in a while, you might not have been there.
Yeah, I haven't.
So you probably haven't been to this place yet. Powerhouse moved. It's this huge indoor facility that has a huge cardio section. It has a really big turf in the middle. It has a boxing section. They have a sandbox in there, like
a literal sand, like for volleyball.
Boxing, I think it's in the boxing area for guys to do
work the foot drills and whatnot.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And a boxing area. There's like a separate CrossFit area in there, and they have a full powerlifting area with monoliths. I think they have a West Side athletic training platform.
Really?
They have they have like everything there. And I love training at Ben's gym just because I know Ben, and there's good energy in that gym.
Okay.
But the amount of equipment at this Powerhouse, you can do fucking everything there, man.
Really?
You can do like a full conditioning workout. You can sled drag there. Like the turf is probably 50 yards long and it's indoors. Yeah, so I'll probably train there. I'll train at Ben's gym a little bit, but yeah.
So as of now, you're still powerlifting, just working around like the ins and outs of what you got going on physically.
I didn't really go super into my back injury, but another thing that happened right around after COVID started, that whole year was just really, really difficult. All that stuff going on, a lot of drama, you know, and just relationships in my life shifting around and changing, and you know, all the stress of running your own business and handling, you know, a lot of athletes and a lot of clients. My business took off ASAP month one. It was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. You know, obviously stressful but rewarding at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, my back was got a little bit weird again after that. And I was doing jujitsu. Jujitsu wasn't bugging me. I got into jujitsu and I was pushing it a little bit, and it was weird because jujitsu wasn't bugging me. Not that I knew of. Like I could do jujitsu and nothing hurt. Nothing was causing pain, and I was good at it. I was progressing fast, and I was planning on training, and because my 2000 total qualified me for the US Open, and I was going to train up for the US Open and compete at the US Open, and it would be good for business, you know, it would be good to compete and put that out there. And I didn't, I was training for it. My back started to like not feel the best, like, you know, trying to start, you know, I knew how I should feel at the beginning of a meet prep, and I wasn't feeling that way. Like it still felt a little uncomfortable. And then I remember I had like a supplement photo shoot, and I went to go do this photo shoot, and I did some conventional deadlifts at like 375 or so. And I woke up the next day and I had sciatic pain down both my legs. And I was just like, motherfucker, man. And so I just like was taking it easy, and it started to feel better. And then a month later, I took a plane flight to Texas to visit friends, and the plane flight was really uncomfortable sitting like that. And got off that plane flight, and I was supposed to just have a blast in Texas with my friends, and I ended up sitting in my buddy's apartment for 5 days because I got off the plane flight and my entire left leg was numb and had no sensation. And I woke up the next day after that, and it was like 75% paralyzed. I probably needed crutches or a wheelchair. I was just too stubborn, and I had a really crazy limp going up. Like my left calf muscle was not innervated at all. Most of my hamstring was not innervated. Most of my glute was not innervated. My quad was fairly innervated. It was that L5S1 dermatome that was just completely shut off. And I had no muscle tone in my lower leg. I could not, like, I had nothing in my lower leg. Like it was jello. And it was probably one of the most depressing weeks of my entire life. I go from being at the height of physical strength and capacity to basically being a cripple. And I was like pretty much crippled for the next month or two. For 3 months after that, 12 weeks, all I could do was swim. And I went back to Tampa. This was, I was in Miami for a little bit. All I was doing was swimming, and my legs, a little bit of strength started to come back. Just doing that and rehabbing. And I met up with Brian Carroll at the time, and talked with him about like a plan and doing the McGill Big 3 every day, and walking and spinal hygiene, and got a lot of inspiration from his story and the injuries he faced, and read some of those books, and just him showing me what his MRI looked like compared to mine, and how he was able to make a comeback. And everything that every doctor talks about when it comes to disc injuries is that it's a death sentence, that it's only going to get worse, that it's only going to degenerate. And I have a whole podcast I did with him on this, so I won't get too much in depth, but I started doing McGill Big 3 every day, which helped. And then I wanted to add some rocket fuel to the healing process. So I did some research and ended up flying down to Medellin, Colombia. And I went to BioAccelerator and got stem cell therapy. I paid a fucking shit ton of money and had them inject my discs, my bottom 3 discs, with mesenchymal Wharton's jelly stem cells. And then I got 50 million cells amongst my discs and facet joints. And then I got 150 million cells IV. And that was one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. Like just how I felt a few days after that and the energy I had. It was like a high.
Really?
It was like, yeah, it was like, you know, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It was like, it was a cool experience, great facility. You know, after I got that IV, they did the IV first, and then they did the injections in my back like a couple of days later. But I did that IV first, and I remember going to sleep that night, and I woke up like 4 or 5 hours. I only slept 5 hours, and I woke up 5 hours later feeling like I had taken 300 milligrams of caffeine. And I was like, I was vibrating. Like I was like, my energy was insane. I was like super alert. I felt like I had taken 10 antidepressants and 300 milligrams of caffeine. It was really wild. Just how I felt, like the amount of energy, like my energy and like upbeat, like it was weird. It's hard to describe. And just insane energy and sense of well-being. And there's no way it was placebo. There's no way.
No.
Yeah. And then I felt like that for probably like 3 to 5 days. And then that kind of calmed down. And then from there, it was just a very consistent, almost daily to weekly to daily reduction in symptoms. Of course, I was doing all the spinal hygiene stuff, rehabbing on a daily basis. A very consistent reduction in symptoms over the next several months. 4 to 5 weeks after that, I was able to bend down and touch my toes, full spinal flexion with no pain. And when that, I couldn't even come close to that before. And that progressed, man. And I went to take my first travel contract in Boise, Idaho. And when I got to Boise, I started a progression, a strength progression of front squats and high handle trap bar deadlifts, like 2 movements that are pretty friendly, that keep you pretty upright. They don't push flexion too hard. The front squats, I wasn't really hinging too much. It was very upright. And the trap bar deadlifts, I wasn't hinging too much. Again, I was pretty upright, just to push some compression and a little bit of hinge. And I built those up very steadily from 95 pounds on each to, I think I did I ended the progression doing a front squat 315 for 15 reps, and the high handle trap bar 325 for like 20 or 30 reps. And then a little bit after that, I actually did a low bar squat at 315 for 26 reps. And I didn't really want to push the weight too much more, but I was just kind of pushing reps. And then and I ended that, and I was pain free at the time, and I could still tell that I wasn't confident going heavier, but I had my life back, which was the goal. I had my life back. I could function. I could still push myself on other exercises. My body composition was improving. Like I was feeling like myself again, not confident to go jump into a meet prep, but I felt good. I could bend over and pick things up. I wasn't hating life. I wasn't fucking depressed anymore. I was mostly out of that dark place that I was in, when all I could do was swim attached to a bungee cord in a pool. That was terrible. And so bad. And and since then it's been kind of like up and down. I pushed my deadlift. I started doing conventional deadlifts after that, pushed my conventional deadlift up to like 355 for I think 15 reps. And that set bugged it a little bit, but the really bad pain was on my left side, and that's completely gone. But I get a little bit of pain here and there on my right side, and I'm a little bit flexion intolerant on my right side now. So I don't know if, I'm getting a little bit of a bulge in that area, or if, or really what the specific case is causing that. So it's not like I'm pretty functional in all aspects right now, except for like really heavy hinging and loading a really heavy squat. Like I can squat 365, no problem. Low bar, high bar, front squat, whatever. But conventional deadlifts, like really getting down deep, like down low, like off the ground, I think I'm still kind of flexion intolerant there. And I think that's an area that I need to go back to like maybe 80 to 90 pounds and do another rebuild there. Because I think the way I look at it with my discs is, I have new tissue down there. And that new tissue hasn't been around for whatever tissue those stem cells generated, whatever they healed down there. There's a weak point down there. There's a weak point. Yeah. There's maybe a thin area in that spot that's painful, that is bulging, and it's not as tough as the other areas because it's newer. Maybe it's still a little damaged, and that area hasn't been exposed to the forces that the other area has. And I'm pretty sure that I need to maybe drop weight down and start reconditioning my body to that hinging pattern, so that area can get stressed a little bit, not above its tolerance, but below its tolerance, so that it can start to get a little bit tougher, get a little bit of stimulus, start to get a little bit thicker, and I need to do that over a longer period of time. So I need to start reintroducing like a slight loaded hinge, a very light loaded hinge, maybe not so low, and just kind of start reconditioning my body that movement pattern to slowly get it back really conservatively, which is what I've started doing now again with bands.
Gotcha. So you could definitely say, as Ian the Rhino Daniels, a name that was given to you by Rich Froning, you've done just about everything at the top. And not only that, you've been injured, been all the way to the bottom, and worked your way back to the top. You can earnestly say that at this point.
At this point, I've been at the top, I've been at the bottom, I've been everywhere and anywhere in between. And whenever, on the internet, when I write stuff, I did a Q&A the other day and asked people why people follow me. And they said, it's because you're real, it's because you're genuine, you're no bullshit. And I think a lot of athletes, as an individual and as an athlete, you don't get wise until you've hit the bottom, until you've kind of fallen and hit the bottom. Because if stuff is always good and only ever stays good, then you'll just develop an ego, because you've never seen the other side of things. And like I've had my, whatever, I didn't really have a huge ego. Like, I mean, I was a young dude, so I probably had a little bit of one at some point. I've never been like super egotistical, but man, like I've had so many experiences that have just fucking killed my ego that I have none now. And I don't talk to people like I talk to people like I have none. And I think people can tell that. I think people can see that. And, people think that, I don't know if I would use the term failing, but I think, hitting that rock bottom point, you learn a lot from that. And that's one of the most, it's not fun. It's not good. It's not great when you're going through it, but that like, you're not a complete human unless you've gone through those kinds of periods, I think.
Yeah. Well,
and it's definitely made me, I'm a different person because of it.
Yeah. Well, we've had you on come up on 2 hours now. So, I mean, like, is there anything you want to plug before we cut the recording, man?
I'd be happy to, man. For anyone listening, I know you coach athletes, I coach athletes. If anyone ever wants to reach out to me about coaching me, CrossFit, working with me, I work with Gen Pop, I work with athletes, I do nutrition one-on-one. I run my own podcast, but I've been really delinquent on it lately because I split my time between coaching and travel nursing, and I'm trying to still actually have a life and pursue some things I'm interested in. So I haven't been pushing my podcast as heavily lately. I need to revive it, bring it back, because I got a lot I can say, obviously. But no, man, just follow me on Instagram. My Instagram's at Ian the Rhino with periods in between the words. Ian.e.rhino. Business is Fortitude Sports Performance. Podcast is Fortitude Live. I answer all my DMs, so I make an effort to respond to everyone. So if you want to chat about something or just shoot the shit, send me a DM. Say hey.
Yeah. All right, good. So I'll cut the recording and I'll get some information from you, and we'll get you on your way. Appreciate you coming on, bro.
That's good, brother.